so much for the chance to share a little bit about myself and my background, my path to council. I have been in San Mateo for 11 years. My husband and I moved here when we were pregnant with our first. That's a picture of me with my baby bump at Laurelwood Park. And then this year with my two kids. My kids can proudly hike Laurelwood with their eyes closed. They're both born and raised San Mateans and attend the public schools. And my community service record really started the minute that my kids were born. I joined the San Mateo Moms Club. I immediately got involved in the PTA as a board member, and I've been a member ever since. I was the president, and I'm still a board member of our Home Association of North Central San Mateo. I was then graduated to the Parks and Rec Commission, was then appointed to the General Plan Subcommittee, and then the council. My career spans 15 years. I'm a two-time nonprofit executive director. I have co-founded a startup, which was sold to care.com, and also have served in the public sector. The core of my experience and my professional expertise is really about how to build healthy and strong communities. I hold a master's degree from Columbia University, and my focus was in human rights and public health. And I think there are a couple of things that really make my experience base very unique. I have been in a direct service role, so I have done bedside care in the hospice care setting. I have been a bilingual case manager to people living with HIV and AIDS. And I also am able to do 20,000-foot, high-level, long-term strategic planning and policy. So I currently serve on the San Mateo County Long-Term Strategic Plan Recovery Plan Task Force. And when I worked at UNICEF, what my job was is really to seed ideas through pilot programs to further HIV prevention education in partnership with government entities. I also have vastly different experiences on an organizational development level. So I have managed and directed tiny nonprofit organizations with budgets less than $500,000. And today I am overseeing the fiscal policy for our 600 employee municipal organization with a budget of over $262 million. I always say that I am working every day for every San Matean. And since I joined the council, I really haven't wasted a single moment. I see this as, one of the best jobs I've ever had in my life, to put my whole self and all of my skills into the betterment of our community and our chosen forever home. And that's really focused on protecting public health and our economic vibrancy and safety, investing in affordable housing, which is a really key issue for me, and sustainable transit and infrastructure, and dedication to a process, a governance and process that involves listening and co-creating a future that respects our history, our diversity, and our neighborhoods. I was asked to speak on my position on Measure P, and I think it's really important just to get it out of the way. It is a matter of public record, and I encourage everyone to read my full statement, which is on my blog, amaranceley.com/blog. I don't think this deserves a ton of time because it is a matter of record. The crux of my reason for opposing Measure P is I believe that it works against what most San Mateans want. And while the policy might have made sense 30 years ago, the task at hand is really to come up with a new vision and a new plan that will meet the needs of today. We have a completely different set of demographics and transportation needs, and today San Mateo is a major job center. So I plan to work very hard on the anti-P campaign, and am taking every opportunity to make my position known. The second area that I was asked to talk about is the question of what is the role of local government, what is the role of the city of San Mateo in supporting economic and community vitality. My answer to that is our job, my job, is to think about and advance initiatives and structures, policies and organizational structures that will catalyze economic vitality and equity. And what that looks like to me is really being as accountable and responsive to community needs as possible. And I'm not asking anyone to take my word for it. I think that my record speaks for itself, my voting record, and the work that the council has done and our staff has done just since the emergency was declared in March. And so a couple of key highlights of that, that I think really demonstrate what it means to be a catalyst as a government entity is the investment that we made, $400,000 investment to the San Mateo County Strong Fund, which will net 10,000 grants to small businesses. We are in an affordability crisis and a housing deficit, and we know that so many people were already struggling to keep a roof over their head. And so when you think about, what is the equity piece, what is the social equity piece, providing support to our neighbors in the form of rental assistance, which involved directing $440,000 of our community block grant to Samaritan House, which is our core agency and nonprofit that serves our San Mateans most in need. I'm really proud to say that one of the initiatives that I really spearheaded was the focus on childcare. I really see childcare, and I'm looking at you, Roby, with the kids in the background. Childcare is the third leg of the stool. If we don't have childcare, we don't have a fully functioning workforce. And so I'm really happy to say that, almost 30% of that designation and that allocation to Samaritan House was earmarked for childcare providers to help those businesses stay in business and those providers keep a roof over their head. There's so many other areas, just sort of a catch-all here. One of the things that was really unique to San Mateo is that immediately after the declaration was called, we directed the staff who were unable to perform their typical job functions because of shelter in place, and immediately formed a business outreach task force. That was a really great use of personnel resources and human resources. And what that involved was, from an equity standpoint, we had a Spanish speaker, we had a Chinese speaker, and I would call out to Jennifer Chen there. What they did is they got on the phone and they walked around the business district, and they provided opportunities for businesses to give direct feedback through surveys, so we could collect data on the COVID-19 economic impacts, and also support businesses to navigate changing regulations, which are still changing, and also connect them to the relief programs that they were eligible for. The volume of information and the need to get support to navigate all of this information, all these lifelines, that was imperative, and I think it really did make a difference. The other thing that San Mateo has done is really transformed our streetscapes and re-envisioned our streetscapes and the way that we can support our businesses, and specifically looking at our restaurant businesses, which have taken a 70% hit. 70%. And so, even in the reopening phase, many of our restaurants will have diminished in restaurant dining capacity. And so the ability to expand their seating capacity and their table capacity into the streets is not only a benefit to the community at large, but also to those businesses whose business model and their cost recovery, their operational factors have done a 180. And so we're really trying to figure out ways to use land resources in more innovative ways. San Mateo was also really forward thinking in terms of the flexibility that we provided, waiving late fees for business licensing taxes. We showed great flexibility in parking enforcement policies downtown in commercial areas. And we also increased police patrolling during the time where many businesses were shuttered and unable to operate. And what that did is it provided security to business owners who have incredible amounts of, their personal investments in their businesses, in their storefronts, and ensuring that, that those, their storefronts would be secure. Economic recovery is going to be very complex, and I will continue my service on the San Mateo COVID-19 long-term strategic planning task force, it's a mouthful, and also the City Council COVID-19 policy subcommittee. It really, to me, it's about balancing two things: our quality of life and helping to create and sustain a healthy economy that will enable our businesses to recover and thrive. I cannot overstate the severity of this economic crisis. We just got numbers back that that in San Mateo County, the unemployment rate has spiked to 11%, and that is 5 times what it was in February. And the effects that this will have on our own city budget will lag. And so we have shifted to a 1-year budget cycle and are doing quarterly reviews. And we are being very proactive in our own management of the budget. In terms of the overarching strategies, I really see our recovery plan falling into several different buckets. The first is advocacy to bring federal, state, and county funding back to the city in the form of direct allocations that we'll have more control over. We've taken on losses and expenses that we are hoping that we can be made whole with some of those direct allocations. The second area is collaborative solutions. Thanks to SAMCETA and the Chamber, we recently hosted a great event in partnership with new Taipei city government to look at best practices there. And I think that on a global and a regional front, there are many opportunities for lessons learned and learning exchange that can happen through collaborative partnerships and city-to-city relationships. The other area of collaboration, which I think is really interesting, is looking at the school district. Now, the school district is very likely going to be switching to an A-B schedule. That will mean that it's possible 50% of our students will not be doing in-school learning. That will create a huge challenge in terms of scheduling for working parents. But the opportunity there is to connect and knit together a scheduling and business model that will support our activity-based businesses, our kung fu schools, our camps, and all of those other small businesses to help partner with school districts to revitalize those businesses and also meet the needs of working parents. And it's just one example of collaborative solutions. The other area is creating green jobs through green infrastructure investments. And I wish everybody in San Mateo knew that over the next couple of years, we will be making over $1 billion investment in green infrastructure. That will look like 10 miles of sewer pipeline, the UFIS project, the North Shoreview levees, and the wastewater treatment plant, making sure that these projects, which are already funded by and large, continue to move forward is an important lever that we have to help revitalize the economy and create good jobs. The last is, staying the course with prudent fiscal policy, which means, in the good times and bad, stabilizing jobs and services. One of the things that I really focus on is the opportunity to do zoning and land use policy and streamline development. When I think about, managing our growth and thinking about how we plan for growth and where we plan for growth, one of the lenses that I apply is really the fiscalization of land use. And so looking at supporting a diverse economy through the diversity of businesses and industry in our communities, I think is really important. And that's one of the core areas that the council has a lot of control over in partnership with the community. Lastly, tax reform. The city of San Mateo, in our council is strongly considering putting a revenue enhancement measure on the ballot in 2020, which will increase the transit occupancy tax from 12 to 14%. And that will net about $1 million in revenue annually. In addition to that, San Mateo is on the losing side of our online retail revenue formula. And so fixing that to become destination based, I think would be greatly beneficial to San Mateo. I'll just end by saying thank you to everybody, and thank you to all the many community members who helped me get on the council and also are supporting my campaign, including our Assembly Speaker Pro Tem, Kevin Mullen, Lou Cohen, the owner of B Street Books and president of the Downtown Business Association. I have early endorsements from Peninsula for Everyone, Peninsula Young Democrats, the API Caucus, and the San Mateo County Central Labor Council. This is my information. I work for you. I'm here for you. Reach out anytime.